Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Stone Zone, the place where I blabber about Dr. Stone. So in this video, I will be discussing the plot holes of Dr. Stone, and some occurrences just don't make sense. Just to be clear here, I love this anime, but just like any other series or movie, it has some plot holes, and that is completely normal. No show is perfect, so you can't go to the comments down below and be like, "No, you suck, Dr. Stone is perfect, me angry grr." I mean, you can, but just don't, please. Now, you might be thinking that you can't take everything I say seriously because the show is not over yet. There might be a reasonable explanation for some things in the future, but today I'll be discussing the things that I doubt there will be an answer to. If the author took the time to explain all the small details, the show would be too long. The signs and plot overshadow all the minor inconsistencies, so if you think too much about it, you will start to notice some things that are a bit annoying. Dr. Stone is a type of show which you just watch, have fun with, and not think about too much after watching. I'm sorry if this video keeps you awake all night, and with that, let's get right into it. Also, if you want to know one really cool fact, you should subscribe. Today's fact is that the first person convicted of speeding was in fact going at the insane speed of 8 kilometers per hour. Usain Bolt's top speed was 40-something kilometers per hour, so let's arrest him. So starting off, you must agree that the biggest plot hole would be the entire Ishigami village and astronaut crew thing. It just simply does not make much sense, and Byakuya and his crewmates could have easily built a boat big and safe enough to reach Japan, using parts of the Soyuz capsule. Astronauts are both trained to be strong and intelligent, so food shouldn't be a problem. Sure, there might be shark attacks, but those are very rare in Japan, judging from the research that I've done. Astronauts should be trained in navigating by starlight, which could have definitely helped in finding the direction to mainland Japan. It wouldn't be an insanely long trip either, because they only landed on one of the islands near Japan. Sure, they would be risking some of the last human's life on the planet, but since there were 6 people, 3 of them could have stayed behind. The other 3 people would attempt to get to the mainland, which they would most probably succeed in, and rebuild civilization from there. All the technology and buildings would still be intact, and unlike Senku, they wouldn't have to start all the way from zero. This is probably one of the biggest plot holes of Dr. Stone, and it could have been easily fixed by simply stating that there are sharks, or that there are a lot of storms in the area. Inagaki could have erased the possibilities of escaping the island. Even though there are not many sharks in Japan, there is not much realism in the show anyway, so it could have easily been overlooked. Well, there is a lot of realism in Dr. Stone. All of the science is based on true facts. Well, yes, but how can you explain Senku counting for 3,700 years or Tsukasa's strength? So you cannot compare Dr. Stone to our real world. I understand that this story was made for it to make sense that a village exists, even though humanity was wiped out, but it could have been executed in a much simpler and better way. Next up is the fact that the astronaut crew caught pneumonia. Now, you might be thinking, of course Stone Zone, of course they got pneumonia, they're living in a forest for God's sake. Well, let me tell you, pneumonia is a disease which can easily be prevented by hygiene and shouldn't be such a huge problem. Byakuya and his friends could have made soap, which is one of the first things Senku makes after waking up. Since they live on an island, they could have used seashells and seaweed, combined with oil or animal fat to create soap. Soap is the key to surviving in a world without medicine, and thus most common diseases could have been beaten. This issue could have been fixed by Inagaki if he just used an incurable disease or even cancer. Pneumonia was also used for Rudy's case, so some change would be nice. Another big reason for pneumonia is water. If water isn't pure enough, there's a high possibility to get it. The thing is, though, is that pure water can be acquired by simply boiling it or distillating it, so that wouldn't be a huge problem at all. They're also given vaccines at birth, so there shouldn't be any reason for why they got it. The next plot hole of Dr. Stone is the fact that Senku didn't get harmed by any animals in the span of 6 months. I mean, he did have the strongest armor in anime, being plot armor, but Senku wasn't attacked by wild beasts at all upon waking up. Sure, in the nighttime he could light a fire to keep most of the dangerous beasts away from him, but that wouldn't be possible in the daytime. It was a long time before he started to build the treehouse, so he wouldn't be able to protect himself from storms either. Senku is pretty weak, and defending against wild animals isn't something you can do with primitive science. It is a huge question mark, but I can see why plot armor was the only way to answer this question. With that, let's move on to the next plot hole. So this one isn't actually that bad, but it's the fact that Tsukasa decided to side with Senku just after reviving Mirai. Tsukasa was hell-bent on destroying the older generation, and Senku never proved anything or did anything to change his mind. Either Tsukasa never despised the older generation, but was just taking out his anger on them, or he just forgave them after the revival of Mirai, just because. The second option seems more likely to me, because when he makes the truce with the Science Kingdom, he said the following: "My goals haven't changed, nor will they in the future. That's why, Senku, this is nothing more than a truce." This implies that he won't change his mind, and that he genuinely does despise them. Now comes the question, will there be a Tsukasa Army vs Science Kingdom V2? I don't know. Since he specifically states that he is not going to stop working toward his goal, if he joins the Science Kingdom, it should create a lot of conflicts between Senku and Tsukasa. When he is revived, if he suddenly joins the Science Kingdom with no context as to why he made that decision, it would be considered a plot hole. Here's a quick summary of what I said because I explained it in such a bad way. When Tsukasa is going to be revived, which will happen because it's an anime, Tsukasa will become an ally of Senku. But there's no reason for that, because Tsukasa specifically says that he won't change his mind, even upon the revival of Mirai. So then, that gives only one other option, being that he will continue to destroy statues of the older generation, which would then result in a recreation of Science Kingdom vs Tsukasa Army. It never really seemed like Senku did anything to change Tsukasa's ideology, then why did he choose to side with Senku? Another minor plot hole is when Tsukasa sacrifices himself to save Mirai. Tsukasa was definitely fast and strong enough to hold the spear and throw it away. Again, this is one of the things that are done to set up the plot for the future, so I'm just being really nitpicky here. Again, I love this show, and I get that it isn't going for absolute realism, because if it did, it would have been completely different. Most of the plot holes are covered and overshadowed by the science stuff, and it isn't important. For example, the fact that Senku counted for 3,000 years is completely impossible, and any person would go insane. But this is not a plot hole, and if you consider it as one, you would have to be extremely dumb. This is because Dr. Stone is not hard sci-fi. It is called a soft science fiction series, which means that not everything is real. Tsukasa's strength, the reason behind humanity's petrification, Taiju's stamina, Yuzuriha gluing the destroyed statues, Ukyo's hearing ability, and Kohaku's eyesight, etc., are not all plot holes, because Dr. Stone is not going for a realistic theme. Just because it has real science implemented doesn't mean it's going for a realistic vibe. Science is just an ingredient in this anime, so all other aspects are your typical shonen stuff. Anyway, thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, make sure to smash like, subscribe, and all that stuff. I'll see y'all next time. Bye bye.